Hello, everybody, and welcome to a wonderful Merlin Cast crossover.
Yeah.
This is actually an edition of Joe Loves Movies fused with Dan's Big Movie.
Yes, hello, everybody.
I've been doing these videos for a while. Last year?
The Dan's Big Movie?
Yeah.
We started the summer, late summer, I think August, or maybe September last year.
Pretty new, actually.
And then we've done, I think, we skipped the first couple months until we came up with, hey, let's do this for regular.
This would be a thing.
And then we've done, I think, maybe 6 of them now.
So basically, that was this origin of we kind of like find the anniversaries of certain movies, and then we try to pair it with a similar movie. And that kind of gave me inspiration, just with the alliteration, though we did miss the anniversary, to do one.
Yes. Would have been last year.
I kind of wanted to do this to kind of give you a shout out because I like doing those videos.
Thank you.
With you on the channel.
Well, and you're on my channel so frequently, which I always appreciate.
He's paying me back.
But I feel like, I am. You're doing all the heavy lifting here for my channel. I want to help you out and do a vid for you.
And I appreciate it. And it's not really that breaking for us because we're just talking about movies.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty usual.
I basically, as a Joe Loves Movies, once again, I do the podcast format more just because if certain movies aren't necessarily my favorites, that I want to put time into editing a video, but I want to hear from other people that might like it as much or more than me. It'll be a good discussion at least. So
this one counts.
This one does count. And we are going to talk about, get ready for it, Dan, Time Machine, 1961?
60.
1960.
That's why we missed the anniversary.
That's why we missed it. 1960. And then it's reimagining The Time Machine again, 2002.
Directed by the great-grandson of H.G. Wells, which I didn't know.
Which I told him, like, the night watch. I was like, I think that's a fun fact.
Very fun fact.
So, yeah, that's basically it. I remember... Okay, I guess you want to talk about the origins of this stuff. Now... Yeah,
well...
So here you go. You're the guest.
Tell me.
The way it is, since this is not on my, top 50 or anything...
Yeah.
You tell me why you love it, your history with it, and explain to me.
This is my number 15 movie of all time.
The only sci-fi, right?
The only straight sci-fi on the list. Back to the Future, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a couple, but the only straight up 100% this is what this movie is.
Hardcore.
Is Time Machine on my top 50.
Classic.
Which will be a series of videos at some point on your channel. Everybody's top 50. But
soon.
This, you asked maybe 6 months ago, you were sort of just taking a straw poll of, hey, what's your favorite sci-fi movie? And you asked a bunch of your friends, and without hesitation, didn't even have to think on it, I said, well, it's The Time Machine, obviously. So we talked about this movie once before at some length on our old Film Fanatics podcast.
That's right.
But I purposely did not listen to that. I told you I was going to, but I purposely didn't because I was like, I don't want to say the same things over and over. So
you just watched it recently, so you got a fresh.
This will be fresh.
Yeah. Perspective.
So my dad, as you know, huge sci-fi kid turned adult. You would have gotten along so well with him.
Sounds like it.
And he did the whole sci-fi bit before it was cool. He was a nerd in the 60s, the 70s. Every Friday night in college,
he was McFly.
He was George McFly. Actually, every Friday night in college, they would watch Star Trek on the the campus TV, whatever, because everybody else was out partying.
Sounds like a party to me. I'm down.
And so this is one of the things that carried over. His love of this movie is one of the things that I grew up with. And there were other things that weren't in the sci-fi realm. His love of the Three Stooges. Got that. Love of the Looney Tunes. Got that.
Nice.
But in terms of sci-fi, Doctor Who was always on, but it wasn't something I watched. Star Trek was always on. I gravitated more toward Next Gen because that was new at the time.
Hip.
But the old series was always on too. Twilight Zone. I've seen some, but but this is the one for whatever reason that stuck with me. So we're going to talk about why, I guess. But
yeah,
I saw this movie. This was like a once a monther for me.
Oh wow!
This is one to always put on. And we didn't have cable growing up, so it was 3 channels and your VCR. But this is the one of the ones we had on VHS. Watched it all the time, and I really love the the setting, the design of the machine itself, we'll get to all of that stuff, but on a more basic level, I really just liked all of the plot conceits. I liked the way they used the time machine. I liked the way that at first, we start out going slowly, and then he meets his old buddy but the Sun version. Jamie.
Oh no,
we'll talk about that. I like that he was in World War II then, and then I love that he just said F this, and threw caution to the wind and flew forward 800,000 years.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the Eloi and
classic.
The Warlocks, the Morlocks. I'm sorry.
If they had magic, that'd be a different movie.
Weena
never would have won. Weena.
Obviously, we love her. And then the books.
You love that scene with the books.
It's maybe one of my favorite scenes in all of science fiction.
Maybe movies. You like
maybe in all of movies.
You like that always makes you like kind of like whew, like you lose your breath for a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it really bums me out.
But the strength of the symbolism of just that says so much with just one action.
Yes,
and a cool effect too. Thinking about making a book like that they just crumble. That's cool.
Loved it. So, for these reasons and many more that we'll get into, this was just a perennial for me. Yeah. Yeah,
that's a great thing. My history with the Time Machine is oddly minimal for a science fiction person.
You've read the book? Because I read the book in high school as well, after seeing the movie many times.
Sometimes I like doing these things because it gives me an opportunity to confess things that maybe I would be ashamed in certain circles to admit.
Never read.
Not exactly. I obviously a big sci-fi guy. Yeah. Love my classics.
Specifically
literature.
Wells and Verne.
Oh yeah. And I had a children's version that was kind of like modified. There were some pictures.
Sure.
So I think they might have like had excerpts. I don't think it was exactly exact translation.
Okay.
So I read a version like the child's version.
Yeah, you read the kiddo version.
The kiddo version.
That's okay.
Which was fine, but I still got it. And it was all there. So I have read a version of it.
Okay.
And I have seen the film before Film Fanatics years ago.
Okay.
One time.
And then I showed it to you then.
And then this
will be number 3.
This is the third time only I've watched it.
Okay.
Just one that I wasn't around that much. And this is the weirdest thing. I could have sworn it was black and white when I saw it. I don't know why.
I still think you must have watched it on a black and white set or something.
But I know that wasn't
never
the case,
been in black and white.
I think I watched it when I was visiting my dad, and it was just one of those old sci-fi movies that was on, and it was a color TV. So I'm like, I don't know what that was. So that might be my memory just being incorrect, but that's one of the strange things about it. So every time I see it in this lovely color, I'm like, what was I watching? But I know it was the same movie. Very odd. Can't explain it. But yeah, I saw that and did enjoy it. But
for you,
for me,
it's this one.
I actually owned this one,
and Guy Pearce,
and that's the one that I watched. Maybe not once a month, but that was one of those movies thrown in the background. My sister,
which I never saw until the other day.
Yep, and so I kind of grew up more with the Guy Pearce one.
Right.
So I always liked the story and the conceits of the Time Machine in general. So yeah, I always was like, yeah, that's classic sci-fi, but not from the novel completely,
right?
And not that much from the original film.
Okay.
If that says something about the story, maybe we'll talk about that.
That it's
timeless.
There it is.
It was inevitable.
There it is. Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with that.
But yeah, less history really with the Time Machine. Oddly enough.
Okay.
I was always more of a War of the Worlds guy.
Well, and that's I've never seen.
Or read.
However,
I'm on that fence.
However, communications major.
Ooh.
Radio DJ for many, many years. I am very familiar with the radio play,
which I've never listened to.
It's it's frightening. Legendary. People didn't get it.
That's a video at some point. I got to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, in terms of entertainment, it's probably the most famous radio thing that there's ever been. I mean, yes, you had like your fireside chats with the president, you had this and that and the other thing.
Not to get too sidetracked.
Maybe the Hindenburg going down is another one. The humanity, but
the imagination with the format and the time. I can't think of any other radio program that had people running for the hills.
Right. I think even to this day, it has to be the most famous entertainment radio program in history.
And I just want to say H.G. Wells, so it's unavoidable to talk about. I mean, really, when
War of the Worlds?
War of the Worlds,
okay,
among other things. Oh yeah.
Between him and Verne, I get a little confused. I know Verne is 20,000 Leagues. I know some of them, but some of them I get confused.
They're the two. They're the two.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about like classic science fiction,
well, and they were contemporaries, right? They existed at the same time,
like late 19th century.
Yeah.
I think they knew each other. So like when you think about like the beginnings of modern science fiction,
right?
They're the guys. So it's like and H.G. Wells is just. I mean, obviously, one of my favorite. Right? I mean, he came up with it, like brilliant, especially for the time.
Yeah,
and
the time
which he came from, and even when they're describing his basic knowledge of time and space in that opening scene, which was from the book, I remember.
Yes.
That must have blown people away back then.
Which I gotta say, and we'll certainly get into it, is a much more effective opening than the second one.
Yeah, the second one tries to establish a lot of things at once. Yeah.
Too much, I think.
It's a little... Remember you were like, they're trying to do so much, and first movie, they're just in the room talking, and it's just conversation.
Yeah.
And it's doing a lot with less.
Well, okay, so part of my homework today...
You went hard again.
I went hard. Now, sometimes on the Dan's Big Movie, I don't necessarily do all of the features and whatever. That's more... Oh, my Dan Does Disney, I do that. Plug for that.
Plug that, please. Those are great, too.
Thank you. And you just joined me for Sleeping Beauty on that one.
And that's you and Tim do all the other little ones.
And me and Tim do the smaller ones. But I spent a couple extra hours today with this. So this is... this one has a 45-minute making of, hosted by Rod Taylor. It was made in the 90s. Nice. By the way, so Rod Taylor, the star of this film, and Alan Young, who plays Philby, does the Scrooge McDuck voice, they both just died within the last, 7 or 8 years.
Oh, wow.
One was 2015, one was 2016. So they lived a long time.
Pretty long,
Rod Taylor could still be alive today, because he would only be, I think, 91. I think he died when he was, 84 or something. So,
wow.
He could still be with us today. But anyway, so he hosted this thing, and I learned a ton about that. So that was that.
I'm excited for that.
This one...
Had some stuff too.
Well, this one is sort of on the begin. No, more, because it was on the beginning of the DVDs are amazing. They can give you so much. So there's literally 3 different trailers. There's 5 different short 5 to 6 minute videos about each thing. One is about the design of the machine itself. Ooh. One was about the design of the Morlocks. One was about the special effects. So that was interesting.
That's pretty cool.
And then there's 3 different commentaries on here.
People had stuff to say.
Now, I
didn't listen to them all.
I'm not going to watch this movie 3 extra times.
Okay.
Like we usually do, like we talked about the other day, I watched about 20 minutes of the one with Wells.
Gotta hear from him.
And I think the guy he was with was the set or art director or something.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, if you really want to take a deep dive into this version of the movie, go for it.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I looked up the Blu-ray of this today, of the original, and it's all the same special features. So this to me screams Shout Factory, Criterion Special.
Ooh. Stamp.
I think this is a movie that we could use a lot more extras for, to be honest.
You should a special edition double disc or something.
I would buy it.
I know you would.
Yeah. But I learned a lot from really both of these things.
Cool.
And
I'm excited to learn here about that because there's a lot behind the scenes stuff I don't
know. One of the things I learned was...
Well, let's look at that cover again.
Yes.
I love old school
this cover.
Artwork.
Yep.
They don't do this anymore, painted stuff.
They don't.
I love that stuff, man.
And what got me thinking about this whole thing on the tangent was you saying they did a lot with very little.
I love that, yeah.
Do you know how much this movie was made for?
$5 million.
Keep in mind, we just talked about Sleeping Beauty from the year before that was $6 million. At the time, the most expensive Disney movie.
Okay,
so that was on the higher end.
So let's $2 million.
$800,000.
Wow.
Is what they made this movie.
Wow.
On. So
fairly cheap for a Hollywood movie. Yeah.
Very cheap. Some of the things I learned in the featurette. First of all, you would love this because a lot of the practical effects are talked about. And what they had to do, for example, the candle going down at the same time as the clock moving.
Ooh,
they had to talk about that. They talked about what it was like to figure out how to convey the passage of time with no effects. So they did the sun going in circles. And they did the woman across the street changing her outfit.
You love that part.
Love that part. So they talked a lot about that. One thing I thought was interesting was that the machine itself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the standard machine these days is this 1960 machine. However, each version of the paperback had a different looking machine on it.
Oh.
And they showed a couple of the covers.
Is this one based close to what was described in the book?
Sort of.
Okay.
Yeah, but it went through all of these really intricate details, including the big thing on the back of it, like the big fan thing, right? There's 365 little nodules on there that I certainly didn't notice, even watching it on the big screen in HD.
You need a Blu-ray.
We didn't notice that, but that's interesting.
That's cool.
They showed how they did the effect of the days zooming by with like different
maybe frames,
like paper like colored. I forget what you call it, but it's the thing you put like over a spotlight to get those colors, like a lens.
Oh yeah, like a different color.
So they were talking about that and how they did that.
Cloth or something.
As a movie maker yourself, I think you would find that stuff very interesting.
I could learn from this stuff.
But then this time machine ended up being at it was sort of destroyed in part after the movie was made, but somebody found it at a thrift store in LA and called like whoever, I think it might have been the director was still alive, I think George Powell, and picked it up, and they literally refurbed it. And so if you ever see that time machine in anything, and it was used in print ads, Back to the Future used it in a promo, which they showed in this.
Nice.
Michael J. Fox talking about it. It's the actual like refurbed.
So
that's the one.
Actual prop exists somewhere.
Yes.
How much do you think that's worth?
God.
What do you think that runs to?
More than $800,000, I'll tell you that.
So when Dan's a multimillionaire, he's buying himself the time machine.
That would be, what a piece to have. So that was very, very interesting. And then just, the how they had to create the Morlock dying at the end.
Oh, yeah.
The passage of the time there.
Or do they have the Morlocks in general? Like, I loved their
about the style. A little bit about their style,
they were cool, yeah.
But it was more about the effects, I think, than anything else.
Okay.
But yes, so that was very interesting. But yeah, the budget for this movie, $800,000. And one of the things that I liked a lot more about the original than the reboot that I mentioned to you is that I think, look, the CGI, they're trying to do all this stuff. They have obviously a much bigger budget. I didn't look at the exact amount, but we can look that up.
Sure.
But my guess would be probably $50 million.
Yeah, probably
something to that effect.
Decent budget,
not nothing compared to like Avengers, but I mean,
was probably a summer.
I think it was a summer blockbuster
sort of thing.
And so, I think they got carried away a little bit in the new one, which we'll talk about with the effects.
Sure.
Whereas the original is so basic.
It's smart.
It's smart.
Pragmatic. Yeah.
Yeah. It has futuristic stuff in it. It's got the rings, the talking rings. It's got obviously the machine itself.
But that's just
it's
like
got the passage of the time. But I mean,
in a little set with some stuff against the wall. It's
minimal sets. Yeah. Minimal everything.
Well, and that's something.
It's so effective.
And when you say that, like, I would not think of this as a cheap movie. Like, it looks like most of the effects really worked very well,
and still look great.
Like, I know you were making fun of the little models when the thing breaks up.
Some of the things with the models,
little claymation. But I thought that looked cool. Like, I bought it. Yes, and with the little lava's coming up, and it's a little miniature.
I know about that, but the miniatures are a little obvious for my taste. Look,
but it works.
It
sells the idea.
Fine.
And you know something? Look, that effect was cool. It was a cool effect, even though you knew it was an effect.
Yes,
it is far superior to the one little thing I'll poke fun of about the movie when they go down to the Morlock cave and they show the back of the cavern and it's clearly
it's a matte painting.
I've seen some great.
That's fine.
They have some great matte paintings in the movie, but that one was just like.
Well, we weren't trying to. We were trying to keep focus away from that.
And let's move the camera down here to the steps.
And right. It might have been a bit of a mistake. But listen.
But still looked cool.
So this guy, this director, George Powell.
What else did he do? Anything I know?
Well, I don't know. Yes. But I don't think you've seen the movies.
Okay.
He's done classic stories. He only did like 6 movies.
Oh, really? Wow, okay.
And then he died, I guess, fairly young.
Oh, no.
But he died in 1980. Well, that's not too young. But he only directed 5 movies. Okay, but I think they're all like, we should probably check these out.
Revered.
Tom Thumb.
Heard
I'm
of it.
curious to see how he does that.
Classic literature again.
The classic literature again, but I'm curious to see how he does that with special effects in 1958.
Yeah.
Atlantis, the Lost Continent.
Ooh.
That's right up your alley. Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm could be interesting. 7 Faces of Dr. Lao, I don't know. But listen to some of these unfinished or unrealized projects that he never got to do. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, 1979. Now,
sounds like that's something Dan would have been wanting to check.
I would have loved that. That was actually right around the time of The Wiz.
He could have done a good Oz.
I think he could have done a great Oz. You pointed out that Philby's spacesuit.
Oh, he totally the Wizard.
That is a ripoff.
And even his mannerisms of how he taught his hair. I'm like, wow.
But he was looking at doing the original Logan's Run in the 60s.
That would have been good.
He was looking at doing Gulliver's Travels and Sinbad as far back as the 30s. So he's got his hands in this classic literature
for sure
put on the screen.
Yeah.
And I think he did a great job here of that. Wow. So love that about it. But clearly he has an eye for this sci-fi stuff. Now, I think we can agree the weakest part of the movie might be the romance, the Weena bit. I liked that more as a plot study in humanity.
Themes of the movie. Well, about his characterization, because that's like the one thing that kind of draws him in is that she has curiosity and wants to survive.
Well, that's what I say. I say the reason that's so exciting is because she's the only one of them that has curiosity, and that one guy.
I can reach these 2 people, and she's one of them.
Right.
And I also remember context, 60s,
right.
Pretty girl.
You had to have a hot blonde
you got
in there,
swoon,
of course. Everybody's white. We got it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Things carry over.
It is what it was.
But for the trope of the time, I get it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and think about, like, at that point in time, the early 60s, late 50s, beach movies were hot.
Big.
So,
and think about it.
They put these people on the beach, they're sunning themselves, and they're swimming.
I would bet that they wanted to kind of really sell the image of the Eloy. It is accurate to the book anyway, but to get more young crowd in, probably.
Sure.
Because I feel like this has a sense of a family adventure.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It's rated G.
Which I take minor
G for the
issue
time
with.
Look, fine.
I was fine with the G until like the blood.
How about the stabbing in the Morlock?
Yeah, the one. Yeah, he gets cut and he's bleeding.
Someone gets straight cut.
The corn
and bleeding.
syrup's just dripping out, man. And I was like, oh. So G, I don't know.
You could say maybe a little harsher than a G.
I think it's a soft, maybe not so soft PG.
I feel like before Hitchcock, most movies were G.
I'm just saying modern sense. Oh, PG-13. This guy gets his throat cut.
I think PG-13 in a modern sense,
but no cursing. Right?
Zero cursing,
very clean. Otherwise.
Zero sex. I mean, even though they're at the beach and stuff, they're not really scantily clad.
But they're all fully clothed. Though also a little simple touch of costume. I loved how Weena, in contrast to everybody else, has this pink dress.
Her pink really pops out.
Which, as a character, we can identify.
I wanted to point out, by the way, it is not Technicolor.
Yeah, I asked. It looks so good though.
Metro color.
Knockoff.
I could tell it wasn't quite Technicolor just from seeing some of the recent Technicolor Disneys.
But it still looked colorful.
It still looked pretty good.
Actually, minor movie buff question, because I've always wanted this. It's one thing I talk about with my friends about classic movies. Troll obviously likes to bring this up a lot.
Right.
And I agree. I don't know if it's Technicolor or as well, but I think that taking account of the type of way they film as well as what your sets look like and your costumes, it seems like back in the day, around this time, even before, classic Hollywood, they made everything pop. It was just so much more colorful, like an Oz, like a Robin Hood, like this.
Well,
and now everything is. They don't do. Remember, even with Hannibal, when we reviewed that,
I understand.
It's so nice to see that. Let's take advantage of this color.
God, that looked great. That Hannibal Blu-ray looked so good.
And you don't see that much anymore, and that upsets me.
Okay, I got to tell you right now, that looked so good on that Hannibal Blu-ray. Not to bring it up again,
no, it's fine. Watch that.
It makes me want to get a 4K TV and really see things. because that looked amazing in that Blu-ray.
But for certain things, that would be worth more than others.
I agree.
That's true.
I agree. I don't think the latest Kevin Hart movie is really going to be that popping on 4K
because the visual specifics aren't that important.
But for something like
this
or Pixar movie maybe or something like that, sure. But
yeah.
Technically, that Robin Hood we saw,
the
which would have been 35 or 36.
That is one of my favorite movies.
To this day, I considered it for my top 50. It's an A+. To this day, is one of the most crisp-looking pictures I've ever seen.
And
it's like when Dorothy opens the door.
Yeah, and it's right up there with that. And it's so colorful. And that's a movie that I was like, I couldn't believe that it looked so good. And it came like 38 or something.
Well, here's kind of my thought on that, because I feel like you were sort of posing a question.
I was. And basically why it's not that colorful now, why studios don't take advantage of that.
Well, I think it sort of dropped in the 50s and 60s.
Right around
in
now.
the 30s and 40s, it was like...
Color.
Great. Because look, you had done silent for so long, then all of a sudden they talked, and then a few years after talking, then you had the color, and we were like, let's do the different types of color. But by the 50s, you had TV. TVs were all black and white, so any color will do. Oh, well, they'll come see this. It's got color.
And people are thinking about what's going to be seen on TV.
And black and white, who cares? It's going to be washed out anyway. Now, of course, our visionary Walt filmed everything in color, even his black and white TV show.
His stuff looked good.
Because you never knew. Yeah. And his stuff always looked good. But most people were not quite that pioneer.
Okay. Gotcha.
So why does it look like garbage today?
Even now today.
I don't know.
Like, just not to go off on a tangent, but classic Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder. Not saying they don't have good visual elements, but even their stuff just looks so muted.
Well, because being dark is cool. Nobody wants to be...
Look, I get thematically you want to be edgy, sure, but like, why does it visually have to look so drab all the time?
Because that's part of the doom and the gloom. It is. I mean, that's just the truth.
There's an intense element to this, and it still looked nice.
This is clearly its own video. I mean, we could go on and on about
this. This will be another spin-off. Joel's movies doesn't have to just be movie reviews.
But let's hear about your take 3 times in on the Time Machine 60.
I mean,
is there anything that we've not gotten to talk about that you really feel strongly about? The visual of the books, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we covered... Oh, yeah, loved the rings.
Love the rings.
We didn't talk about the jerk. Philby. I am the last man who knows something. My name is of no importance.
My name is of no consequence.
Go F yourself,
if you're the last person on Earth, we want to hear your name.
Where are you from? Maybe we could find more,
I hated that
the
part.
Human element. Like, that last guy that knows the info is a
jerk. He's a jerk. He is.
We're our least favorite character.
But also, okay, here's one thing I think the new version did maybe a little better.
I was going to ask, I know there were one or two things you said that might have been improvements, and I was like, what?
Very few.
What?
Believe me, very few.
I know.
Well, I mean, for example, Orlando Jones instead of the rings.
Yeah, you kind of like that.
That was cool.
That was cool. We'll get into that.
But no, the friends. So he only really has one main friend in the new version, which is played by Mark Addy. But in the old version, it's Alan Young, who's the good one. He is the one who's looking out for his well-being. But then there's these other 3 guys who all are like, F this dumb time machine, da-da-da-da-da.
You're not going to do it. You're nuts. It's a waste of time.
Right.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a good support group. And we were saying about how one reason he wants to leave is because he doesn't really have a good...
Everyone there stinks. Except for Philby. Everybody there is just a bland person, not a good friend.
We like his
housekeeper's nice, but
she's barely a character.
Barely a character. It was cool, by the way, in the feature that they made in the 90s. He busts out the miniature time machine that they put the cigar in. So they still apparently have that prop too.
That was awesome.
Which is very cool.
Oh yeah, that's one thing we were poking fun of a little bit. Like, that's where it stretched believability. We could believe that in 1890 he could build this time machine out of like a piston, but could he make one that small with those intricate pieces.
I don't think so.
We have decided.
We question that one.
Our suspension of disbelief cracked a little.
Yeah, that's a no. That's a no for me.
That was kind of funny. But it was cute, but it was just a great little model.
Yeah.
And that was probably like concept design
for
the bigger one.
How about all the clocks? You loved all the clocks.
That motif's
in his house.
good. I loved. And that's just like thinking about set design. Somebody's thinking about the interesting visual of that. I don't know the significance of it necessarily.
And all sort of different clocks,
but the clocks on his
different
fireplace,
sizes.
They went up ascending in size. It's just that attention to detail to look so lived in.
Yeah.
And how we also debated about whether or not where he kept his lab was actually still his house. When he said, "I won't leave the front door."
Yes.
Because his friend actually does believe, maybe not necessarily believe him entirely, but thinks that he might be up to no good or maybe going off the deep end.
He thinks he's lost his mind.
So he's like, just promise
he thinks he has lost his mind.
Go out tonight, and he's like, I won't leave through the front door. Goes out the back to his, basically like a sunroom.
We thought maybe it was a garage. We learned, though, it's his lab.
Yeah, and I did like the passage of time when he goes out and we meet his son, who he's mentioned was a baby.
That was weird.
That was an element. That was one thing.
I never noticed that before.
Like the age of the actor, you're like, I don't know how. When he said baby,
because it went to
10.
like 1917 or something. Like he's supposed to be the war.
World War
so
I.
He's supposed to be a young man, an 18 to 20-year-old, because he's a baby in 1899. But this guy looked like he was 35, 40 if he was a day.
And that's why that was one thing. I'm like, that's why it confused me when I think he said baby. Maybe he meant like 10, like the baby.
Yeah,
back
maybe
then they
he's still the baby in the family, but
also just simplicity of the costume design I thought was great. And I think one thing about the Time Machine too, this movie that I think really really popped watching it again. Which I didn't realize. I watched Forbidden Planet for the first time not that long ago.
Okay.
And I think that's probably number one because it came out before this. But in terms of visual aesthetics, like those sets, the minimal stuff, kind of low budget. You got the models, the matte paintings, the guns, and the costume. This is among one of the most influential visuals for like the retro. I mean, besides like the pulp comics or whatever. Sure. Like Flash Gordon. This is Doctor Who, which I feel like the machine was a reference to the TARDIS. Like I think they used that. The inside of his ship, I feel like they based that on the Time Machine a little bit with the knobs, and also Star Trek. I feel like Star Trek
very Trek heavy.
Like this and Forbidden Planet,
in fact,
I feel like draw so much from. Like this was a Star Trek episode.
Yes,
it felt like it when he's wandering around. The society's messed up. The Morlock monster looks like from. There's this one episode. I think we watched it. From the original series with the salt monster. Looks like a Morlock. Just visual elements. Like,
visual elements are there.
Yeah. I just feel like this is such a. I mean, not just thematically, but really the visual. I feel like
it was
sci-fi for the 60s and 70s.
This was a jumping off point. Because at this point, let's think about this. Most of these sci-fi movies were B movies.
And they were
C movies.
Regarded as such.
They were also
black
and white,
and really low budget, and
very low budget, lower than $800,000.
Like cobbled together with string stuff. It doesn't matter. The kids are gonna go watch it after the main feature, drink their pop, and whatever.
So I think and I haven't looked this up, but just going off what I know, because I mean you showed Day of the Earth still, which is what, 54?
That one.
51, okay, which looks amazing.
That's the exception.
It's the exception to the rule, but even that's in black and white. When color movies were certainly around in 51. So,
random question: Have they ever done a colorized version of it? I'd be curious to see what it looks like.
Of Day of the Earth still? Maybe.
I wonder if they do. I have a feeling it wouldn't pop because who knows what
I feel like when Turner was all about the color. You mean a remake?
Conversion.
They
colorized.
When Turner was all about the colorization, he mostly just did the classic dramas, for Turner Classic Movies. He really, I don't think, would have done that
but
one.
Yeah, Day of the Earth Still is also a great example, but that's kind of like I talked about it before. That's like the outlier. That is the low budget sci-fi movie that they actually really cared about.
Right.
for some reason.
Well,
it's interesting though, because really if it had been handled differently, it would have been a lot cheesier because it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
But it was handled with much more care and it's very well put together. By the way, I owe you something. You were disappointed in my Joe Loves Movies about it because it was too short. This guy was like, I try to keep it short for people. And he's like, man, only like
3 minutes
less.
or something.
And you were like, I was expecting a good 6.
If I like to look, If I want to hear why you love a movie so much,
Fine.
I mean, if I can do 9-minute reviews on the Billie Eilish documentary, I think you can tell me in more than 3 minutes why you like a movie.
I'm trying to be economical.
All right, well,
you're right. I guess it is me just waxing about the movies I like. All right, but there will be a sequel.
What was the one? It was
Day of the Earth System.
Okay,
you were all like, "What?" So I'm gonna do some.
Too short.
I'll do it again.
Just saying.
I'll do it again.
All right.
I will do a continuation.
Speaking of doing it again,
they did it again. Kinda.
They did it again in a way.
In a way. All right.
So this was your go-to.
This was the one that I.
So tell me.
There's really not much to
love
tell.
it. Number one sci-fi of the 2000s.
He's putting words in my mouth. No, this is a movie that I enjoyed quite a bit when I was young. Like this came out right when I was like 13 or something, and it definitely fit my.
Right in that pocket.
Like, okay, this was new, based on a classic sci-fi, but there's good action. There's some effects work that's cool. You've got an interesting, creepy villain. Got some big ideas.
Creepy, yeah.
Like somebody getting. I mean, I grew up. I had a wide variety of movies I grew up with that were all over the place, but definitely seemed like something that was in my wheelhouse. I gravitated to.
Yeah.
And
you see it in theaters?
No.
Okay.
I believe we just got this on DVD. I guess that was the first time seeing it on theaters was with you. So, it was just one that might have been like a cheap giveaway used from Hollywood Video or something.
Right.
Picked up. I don't even know. And like I said, just
I like, by the way, that you always throw in Hollywood Video instead of Blockbuster because that's where you went. And that's where I work.
Up the street from where I live, that was typically where we went. We did go to Blockbuster sometimes.
Blockbuster was fine, but Hollywood,
it felt cooler
for me.
Because I felt like I was going to Hollywood. I felt like I liked the purple design with the lights.
Yeah, they had cool staging.
I liked the big screens that you guys said it was like 20 TV. We could talk about Hollywood Video sometime because
that would be a good video. Actually,
we met and didn't know it because I was there.
We had to.
I was there every Saturday.
I worked there for 2 years, and I was there like 5-6 days a week.
Literally from like.
There's no way we didn't meet when you were like 10, 15
when
I
moved
old.
to that side of town, closer to where it was. I mean, from like 2002 to like 2008 or when it closed.
Yeah.
So 5-6 years. I was there like every other Saturday.
I'm sure we met.
Rented so many things. Anyway.
Yes.
Point is, might have got it from there. Threw it on, and I enjoyed it. The part I remember my sister and I always cracked up at was when Orlando Jones when we talk about it gets a bit meta and talks about the
actual time machine and then references the first movie
and then references the Andrew Lloyd Webber show and then he starts singing there's a place called Tomorrow.
It's not bad
and it's like it still gets a chuck because it's just so random. And it's funny. I kind of like some of the humor in the movie. It's weird.
Well, that is one thing about the first movie. It's very dry,
but it's fun.
Very serious.
It's fun though, so I don't think
it's fun.
But I guess it has some heavy.
It's
elements.
fun, but there's no jokes.
Because the guy's like, I want to go into the future, and my everything we fought for it gets down to this where nobody cares about knowledge. Right. It's a pretty powerful theme, but I guess we'll get into that. But I liked the motivation for the character.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, and knowing more, it's a very different from his motivation in the first one, where
very different. It's a different. It's really a different person.
They even named him
because his name is not George anymore.
So it's like it's not exactly the same. It's like
Alexander.
I was even thinking like reboot, reimagining is more accurate. It's like the same story, but not.
I think that actually, yes. If this came out today,
like it's not remaking this movie.
I feel like reboot.
They'd say reimagining.
They didn't call that back then, but yeah. I mean, if this came out today,
it's not really a remake.
I think it's probably more of a reboot or reimagining
because it's really trying to do some different
than
things.
A remake.
And I'm glad I watched this one again with the original because I could really see some of the artistic choices.
Yeah, but when you watch them back to back, it's really quite different.
Things stand out. Like they aren't really just doing the same thing.
No. And and there's a kid in this one.
There's a kid.
The Eloy have a kid.
Yeah.
Many kids. One of them is drawn to him.
It's not Weena, it's what's her name?
Yeah, what was her name?
They call her Chumbawamba.
Oh, so you call her Chumbawamba. It's this R&B singer, Samantha Mumba.
And I liked her.
She was not talented.
She wasn't, but I liked her.
She wasn't a good actress in this movie.
She was all right.
Well, one of my big issues with the movie is the acting.
Yeah, some of the acting's
I'm not a huge Guy Pearce fan to begin with, but this movie, he's doing Jimmy Stewart.
Well, when he starts out...
I'm not sure where I'm going to go, Mary. It's like, oh my God, what...
He drops that about halfway through.
He does, which makes it even a worse performance because then it's an affectation.
I think that he's.
I don't think it worked.
Transforms into an action hero, as they say. But no, I liked his motivation. Where in the original,
$80 million's the budget for this, by the way.
Wow.
Compared to $800,000 for the first movie.
Well, we'll say roughly. Well,
that's gross.
It would have been 10 times. 100. Well, we'll just say for inflation, what this is 10 times bigger than the original.
Yeah, I would say probably 800,000 was probably something like $8 million at the time.
We'll say that. So we'll say this is all right. This is a fairly big.
So that's 10 times bigger than that.
So yeah, and I want to say that I liked his motivation.
I'm going to say some things.
I know. And I liked how the original's motivation was like discovery, and I want to kind of don't feel like I was born the right time. I want to just see that.
This one was the girl.
Okay, we got the love interest. She dies. I want to try to change the past. Can't do it. Want to try and figure out why. Maybe I could go to the future.
Now I will say
that. I kind of like that.
I also liked that aspect of it. Not necessarily the motivation.
Okay. But the idea.
I didn't care much for her, but
and she was the worst actress.
She was the worst one. She got killed pretty early on, which was fine.
Yeah.
But I liked the exploration of why he can't change that moment.
And they
explained it, and it made a lot of sense, and I thought that was really good.
Time travel, fate sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I thought that was very interesting. That was made sense. And then Jeremy Irons being the head of the Morlocks,
showing there's a structure,
Chief Morlock or whatever
of their society, and
which that's an interesting twist.
Their perspective. We learned the Morlocks' perspective.
Yes, because in the first one, but
we know they are organized.
But they also help the Eloi survive,
sustain enough to be, and they explain
for bad reasons, but still.
But so clearly, there's some intelligence. There's a structure.
Yeah,
and this movie gives insight to that.
Yes,
with
it's more of a dastardly plot. As opposed to yes, it's a mustache twirling plot.
But I kind of liked it,
as opposed to some other things. I thought it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say the first one won an Oscar for special effects.
Nice.
This one was nominated for best makeup but lost.
Okay.
Best makeup, I don't know.
The Morlocks were cool.
But here's one of my biggest issues with this version of the film.
Okay.
Other than the acting.
Okay.
Now, from almost 20 years on,
the CGI.
It just doesn't look that good.
Yeah.
The CGI, and that's the great thing about practical effects.
I agree.
Obviously, they didn't have computer effects in the 60s, so everything was practical. And by design, everything looks as good as it could in line with the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you can clearly see that they're working on paintings and whatever. Yeah, some very cool stuff. But here, you know, the effects just, I'm sure they were pretty eye-popping for 2002. It cost $80 million to make the movie.
Yeah.
But the problem with a computer-heavy movie is that you're going to get that dated nature pretty quickly.
Heavy CG, yeah.
The last Dan's big movie we did was Death Becomes Her, was one of the films.
Mm-hmm.
And those effects were really cool.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of computer elements here or there, but for the most part,
a lot of practical. Trick photography, stuff
and
like that.
30 years on, it still looks really cool.
Yeah, if you watch that one, the hole in Goldie Hawn's, that seemed...
I still can't even imagine.
92?
We should try and find a making of.
If there's
92,
a feature,
yeah.
I'm sure it's on DVD.
Very interesting.
Very cool.
But here, they look very dated. The things that didn't look dated were the machine itself.
The machine was cool.
The machine was very cool.
The machine was cool.
I prefer the original, but the machine was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And when he first goes to the not Morlock future, but the future.
The future
where he
is
first
now.
meets Orlando Jones. The future is now.
With the
that still looks good.
That was pretty cool. But that's all a big I don't know. I guess partial set.
I would say that was like Jetsons inspired CGI.
Yeah.
It was like bringing the Jetsons to life with the big computer screens, the Orlando Jones being a hologram,
AI library
that sort of thing.
Which I know you liked that a lot. You liked him being the rings, basically.
That
Your favorite
was
part?
one of my favorite parts of this remake.
I'm surprised. I didn't know how you feel. I was wondering how you feel about that.
You thought for some reason I hated Orlando Jones.
I don't know why.
I just don't know anything about him other than being the 7-Up guy. I don't remember seeing him in too much.
Mad TV, I think it was.
Mad TV. He was, I think, one of the original players on that. But like,
oh yeah, he was in Office Space. He was trying to sell.
Yes, he was selling magazines in the one scene in Office Space.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what he's known for. So I was fine with him. Yeah,
that's
liked
cool.
him a lot. I think he was maybe doing a little bit of a Chris Tucker,
maybe.
But yeah, I was fine with that. I thought he was funny, and that is one element that this movie does have. Like we said, the other movie is very dry, very dramatic.
This one makes fun of itself
This
a little.
one has a little fun with the themes, and I think for the time, 2002, you needed that.
Also, one thing I thought was kind of cool with the Orlando Jones AI characters that he is still, around. He can explain the plot.
He never goes away really once he's in the future
because they establish his core keeps him powered. And
yes.
I guess that survived, sure.
And
he kind of gets he finds out about the Morlocks and the Eloi because he made friends with one, and he was actually
that's right
emotionally affected by it as an AI. I thought he did a decent job.
I thought that stuff was very interesting.
For a more serious part,
I think they definitely did some changes that I liked.
You told me you liked the Morlocks. Actually,
I liked the Morlocks.
You did a good job with them.
I really did not care much for the whole Eloi
being
plot.
Well, the thing about...
I didn't like the acting, for one thing, but I also didn't like that they've created... And I think...
A society.
I think it was more the CGI, to be honest, than story development.
Okay.
It just...
You don't like the side tree thing?
In my mind...
That was kind of cool.
In my mind, this movie didn't need to cost $80 million.
Probably
because
not.
I think...
Does any?
I think it was all... Well, maybe, but
maybe
I think Avatar, I guess, or something.
Oh,
but,
don't bring that up.
All right. Well, for the effects, though.
Yeah, probably. Sure.
But, like, when I think about all of the time they must have spent on the effects and all the...
putting it together.
Guys, this is going to look so cool. And that's
You're
fine.
like, eh.
I didn't think it looked that cool because I'm watching it 20 years after the fact. But aside from that... what drew me into the first one for so many years is the story. And I think this one changed too much about that original story.
It's juggling a lot.
And made it more about, look at this cool effect. The Eloi didn't have to live in these cool huts and this and that and the other thing.
How, so you said not necessarily with the story. How did you feel about the Eloi? They aren't dumb. They're not.
No,
they're
not brain dead like the original Eloi.
They're just completely under the thumb of the Morlocks.
Right. I think it's an interesting twist.
Okay.
I prefer the original.
Me too. It's a little scarier
in that regard. Certainly scarier. This seems like more of a let's have a metaphor for oppression
in general. Okay.
By the government and which it probably wasn't as hip in 2002 as it is now. It's a little blasé now, but
that's a timeless thing, I guess.
I think it's a little bit
standard
a bit on the nose for me.
A bit on the nose.
Now I do like that they had a kid though. I like that there's children involved. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, you like a kid. I thought the kid was fine as actors go.
Yes,
he was actually all right.
Acting, he was fine. But the other thing I do like that actually does have to do with the effects.
Okay.
Is I did like when they were in his lab and you saw all the they made basically his lab turned into like a car manufacturer or something.
Oh yeah.
But they had all the different cars going in and out at a rapid speed. That was a cool effect.
That was just
and I think that still looks cool.
I think that was probably quick photography rather than CGI probably.
Well, it was. And what they actually said in one of the portions of the commentary I did here was that basically that lab was just completely empty. That whole lab was just him.
Really?
That's cool. The chalkboard was CGI, like everything.
The chalkboard was CGI.
Apparently.
So when he's drawing on that's fake.
I guess.
Well, that was good CGI. I guess.
Unless they were only talking about
what was
once he was in the machine. But
I was like, wow. No, he had to have been writing on that.
Maybe he was writing on the board.
Well,
but everything else, like all the boxes, all the tchotchkes that were around him.
I know you think it's doing too much, and I do like
too much.
the simplicity of what they used for the original, but I do think there is some cool cinematography here, like when they're establishing him in the school writing on that board. I think that's pretty good.
It's fine.
There's some good shots. Did you like... I will tell you, one of my favorite effects with makeup and prosthetics is the Jeremy Irons Uber Morlock. They call him the Brain Morlock.
Yeah.
He looks just very pale and creepy, and I love the turning around. He's like a mutated subterranean spine sticking out.
That was pretty cool.
He's creepy.
That was pretty cool.
And as much as I do like those effects,
yeah,
I pointed this out to you. I think the Morlocks borrow a little from the Burton Planet of the Apes and from a certain film called Lord of the Rings. Even when they cut down to the banging like on Saruman's
well, even what Irons looks like.
He looks like an elf or something.
That's very Lord of the Rings.
So you could tell, they're trying to get on
that.
that
All right, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you're going to rip off, somebody,
classic,
rip off the best, I guess.
But, that's true. One big thing we didn't talk about with the original that I wanted to bring to compare here.
Okay.
One of the classic things about Time Machine is the question at the end from the book.
Oh my God.
The books he brings back to the Eloy.
Yes.
After telling his story.
Which, boy, they didn't do that in the new one.
No, they had
ending.
They had the bowler hat.
Very bland ending. Yeah.
I like the bowler hat.
Okay. Yeah.
It's more of a commentary rather than a question.
Well, look.
A thinker.
I understand.
I thought it was nice.
I think that's what 60s sci-fi did.
Make you think.
Twilight Zone. Trek.
Yeah.
Outer Limits.
Get an action movie from 2002. It's like, feel good ending.
I think.
And your favorite part.
What was my favorite part? The singing,
the chanting, who does that in movies? It's like the Gregorian,
Gregorian
tribal chant or the children.
I did hate that.
You hated it. I thought that was fine.
No, I hated that part.
The Eloy theme, basically.
What I liked, I will say, and we touched on him very briefly, but I liked Mark Addy as Philby.
Yeah, I liked him as Philby.
I thought he added to
the character.
I think what they did in the original because he was the only one.
Yeah, he's the only guy.
Like I said, the original had all the friends, so I liked that because Philby's my favorite. So I liked that they brought him in as once again the conscience. They didn't change his character really hardly at all.
And I like caring Philby in this too. Yeah.
Explaining to the people left behind what happened.
Like, he must be
because he does explain because he does still have a housekeeper.
Oh, and remember when they show the side to side because he doesn't go back, and they're
that was cool
about what he'd been
that
there.
Was cool,
and he'll that's cool.
And I do also like the idea of the girl still dying,
like that he can't avoid that.
He takes her away from the mugging, but then she still dies because she gets in an accident.
It's like you can't reverse the flow. You got to accept
and look,
it.
That's obviously been touched on
many
by
times.
The best of them. But I thought it was well done here.
Good theme.
I thought it was well done here. So I do like that.
I think the message is good.
Message is always good. But let's talk about the 3 books.
The 3 books. Which I still have never been able to figure out the third one because it's not what I bring, but I always assumed he brought the Bible.
Bible, number 1.
And probably some sort of technical manual, either engineering or medical.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And maybe some other great piece of literature to get people thinking. Philosophy. I say Shakespeare. Complete works of Shakespeare.
I think that's a pretty solid choice.
Yeah.
And they certainly had, complete works of Shakespeare or... Socrates, Plato.
Yeah, something like that. The
something for the brain.
Something to get people thinking.
I think that's what he brought. He brought something for a classic work of literature for the brain. The Bible, obviously.
Some moral thing.
And then some how-to.
How-to build.
Whether it is about building,
indoor
engineering, like you said.
Some fundamental engineering thing. How-to manual.
So I would say maybe not even Shakespeare. I think more philosophy.
Yeah.
I think more Socrates or Plato because they clearly had... nothing like that.
They didn't think.
They didn't
question
so anything. I think Bible, philosophy, and a how-to.
And just as a great sort of iffy sci-fi question, like with the Eloy just being like, why would we wonder? What is this? Why would you? Why? And when she's drowning, people don't even have a concept of her being dangerous.
They don't care.
They don't care. They're
because they die by the bushel anyway.
There's no sense of urgency because it's so
in the Morlock.
Though I did like that line in the new one when he's like, "Why can't we do anything? This is the day and the night. This is the world of how."
Yeah, you like that part.
That was a good line.
Yeah.
So they carry that over a little, I guess, but just
I would say so, yeah.
But it's more
philosophical than the first one, obviously.
It's the degradation of society and like the kind of, it's weird how it's like the picture of this perfect society. Ideally, like, oh, they can just eat and laugh and play, but there's no development, there's no pushing forward, there's no real sense of compassion,
and no one does anything either. No one cooks,
no
drive. One, everything is done for them to keep their society going
because they're enslaved. They,
but they don't know or care
because they're so ignorant. Right. It's a very scary and poignant idea, which is classic. Really classic.
It's very classic sci-fi, classic Wells.
Yeah, and that they touch on that. So many Star Trek episodes on that.
Of course.
Right.
All right. So, was there anything else we really wanted to tackle here?
No, I think that's pretty much it from my perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. That's about it.
So this is more. Since it's on your channel, we're doing Joe Loves Movies. Are we going to grade these? Because you don't give grades on Joe Loves Movies.
Joe Loves Movies, I like it to be about the discussion, the ideas. I think grades, that's going to pin people down to think like, it's. I was actually thinking about asking about this.
Classic Ebert.
No, that's too general because
that's why I like the letter grades myself.
And all right, even thinking about that, we'll grade them. But we
don't have to.
No. I'll let you know. It's fine. It's fine. My feelings won't be hurt. I know how you feel.
I don't know about that.
Oh man, I'm gonna cry.
No. I mean, I don't know if it matters either way.
No, it's fine. No, my point is with. I guess I wonder when it comes to reviewing things. Mm-hmm. I worry people get too hung up on a grade, like a star rating, because, like for instance, if somebody's skimming,
I think there's nuances.
There's nuances. Like we'll go back to our buddy Ebert. Obviously, people, what do they really care about? For the weekend, 3 stars, 4 stars, 2 stars, But are they going to read what he wrote and figure out his thoughts and maybe recommendations? Because sometimes that's in there.
Well, that's why I always liked the show they did. Because they talked about it, and then at the end of the review, they would say thumbs up or thumbs down. But they talked about it for 4 minutes first to give us... and then sometimes they would say things like a marginal thumbs up. That means it's like, okay, it's right on the border. Like, it's probably, for me, like a B- type of thing.
Yeah. Whereas I know we talk much longer. So
hopefully
you have an idea.
If you don't have a gauge about what we think about these movies by now.
I appreciate that we try to look at it many angles and think about audience and context and time. And
yes.
Yeah, but no, I guess, I think that with the Time Machine, it's an obvious A+ for you. The
original Time Machine is an A+ for me. It always has been.
I think it's probably
an A. I think A.
Probably an A, which I think when I gave it last time. And I guess maybe it's some of those little things. Maybe it's the trope of the romance, but I couldn't quite.
I don't love the romance. Like it is my least favorite part.
It's minor. Like I'm quibbing.
But what I think is nice about that is it's not like he goes back to necessarily be with her.
No.
I mean, yes, I'm sure he will be, and that's the bit.
There was literally a scene.
They'll procreate, but he goes back to basically educate an entire society.
And you know what? I like the fact that they had that connection, and there was literally a scene before that they're talking, but then like the next scene, the music comes in, and they do the thing, and I'm like, you were so close to not being a stereotype.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
You had to do it.
Like, I'm quibbling. Look, and you know what? I could give it an A+ just for the effects, because you don't like the dang ground splitting with the little miniature. I think that's great.
That's the part I don't really care for.
But that's classic.
It's very classic.
That's classic. It's like saying you don't like the UFO and Day of the Earth system.
Of
course it's
I
fake.
think that's like you with the matte painting in the hut.
But that's a nitpick. That's
what I mean. I'm not saying it takes me out of the movie and it's garbage.
somebody
It's just so obvious. It's like you in the matte painting. That's all.
Well, sometimes I appreciate the creativity even in the obvious.
I agree. What about the second movie?
Oh, I debated on the second movie. I definitely don't.
Or do I go first?
Go. Actually, you know what? We'll have you go first. This is your guest spot.
Because here's something else that I do have to consider.
I was defending this movie the whole time.
Here is something that I do have to consider. You were really pushing it.
I was trying. I was trying to save the movie.
Here's what I really think about. If I had never seen the first movie and have no basis for anything, how do I feel about this movie?
Yeah, how would you feel?
I certainly would like it more. Although I still think the acting is not good.
It's not great, yeah.
Guy Pearce is no Rod Taylor.
No.
And Samantha Mumba is just not good.
She's a little wooden.
Irons, of course, is fine.
He's the best one, but
that's by default. But that's by default. And I liked Mark Addy as the friend.
And that's
as Philby.
most of the...
but he's only in it a couple scenes.
Orlando Jones you liked. It was fun.
Orlando Jones I like. Again, though, only in it a couple scenes.
True.
I think a proper grade for this movie is probably something in the B to B minus range.
What?
I think I would give this a B minus.
What? That's higher than I thought.
Is it?
Yeah, because I...
Well, look. Here's the thing.
Wow.
All of the
You like a lot of things in it, actually.
All of the conceits are basically the same.
It's the same... Oh, yeah, same movie argument.
Same movie argument. But I also do like some of the things, like fleshing out the Morlock universe. Mm-hmm. I liked that.
You kind of like some other thing. You even though you like the original better, you did think the new Time Machine was pretty cool.
The new Time Machine is very cool.
Yeah.
I can't deny that. And, like I said, I liked the... even though I didn't really like the girl, and who cares if she's dead, the motivation was interesting. And not just that, but I like what they did with why he can't change the past. I like that.
And not a lot of time travel movies handle the stuff like
they
that
don't.
very well.
And I thought this one did. So, look.
Okay.
I think B minus is completely fair for this movie.
Okay, because I had a test that was like, if you do a double like a drinking game, that's usually pretty good for you. You don't like to watch too much crap on the drinking games.
I don't know.
No, but
Swordfish was an exception.
You didn't know though.
But I wanted to see it. I didn't know.
People only watched it for two reasons.
I forgot.
You know the bit.
Yeah.
Tallyberry. Well, for me, I didn't like this as much as I did when I was a kid.
Okay.
I think
well, and the effects don't hold up.
No, and I
especially
remember
after watching the first one.
I was like, oh man, like the CGI of like when time's changing and the Earth's shifting. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And I was blown away by that as a kid. And I'm like, it looks like PS2 graphics or something. It's fine, but it's not that great. Not that eye-blowing. But I think the thing is, like you said, the movie's juggling a lot, and it doesn't all quite gel that well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it does have... It's not a terrible movie, because there's a lot of good things in it, and there's still a lot of creativity, and I really liked how they weren't trying to do the exact same thing. They tackled different ideas.
Yes. And I think some of them worked and some of them didn't.
So I'm tentative.
Like many things in this movie.
Like, I'm tentative. I want to say it's a little above average because it's so mixed. It's like a C+ for me.
Oh, lower for you?
I thought about a B-, and I was just like, it's...
Maybe I was trying to be a little more fair because I loved the first movie so much. I thought you'd be a little higher.
In my heart, it's a B-.
Tell me.
But I want to say it's a C+, because I just think you brought up so many things that were so mixed.
Well, listen to this. Maybe C+ is more correct.
Okay.
I did bring up a lot of mixed. 29% on Rotten.
Yeah,
that's low.
It's very hated.
So people didn't care for this.
This is the thing. I was worried about it because you were worried, and people don't really talk about it. But I remember
no, they never talk about it.
Some videos and reviews slammed it as being like, I guess, a slap in the face to Wells, which was ironic because like a family member clearly was trying.
Yeah, the fact that his great grandson did the directing,
and he's worked on some good stuff, a lot of animated stuff.
Ebert hated it.
Yeah, and I was like,
found the Morlock animation cartoonish and unrealistic. Now I don't agree with that.
That's your favorite.
That's actually one of my favorite things in the movie effects wise.
I remember reading.
So I don't agree with that.
A piece of the review I read of his said he thought that they looked fine, but he didn't like that one could jump really high because it took you out of the movie as if they're superhuman. But I'm like, they're like weird ape people.
We don't They are kind of superhuman.
Yeah,
we don't know. They don't exist in the real world, so they can do whatever they
it's a fun
are going to do.
Adventure. So I was like,
yeah. No, look, I think
a C+, B- range.
I think that's accurate.
Because for me,
I think that is accurate.
I don't know if it's like a guilty pleasure exactly, because I really want to say that I want to give it that stamp of good, but I just feel like it's on that line.
Well, Guy Pearce is not a good actor.
You know what's weird about him in this movie?
He's just not.
I think Guy Pearce is fine in certain roles. The weird thing about this is I think he got better once he got out of like the 1900s or whatever, because he was just
he doesn't play a good 1900s man.
But when he takes the hair down,
that's the problem.
He's the guy.
He's still that guy, just in the future. And so why would his character change?
He grows, I guess. He becomes
C+.
more.
I'm down. You've talked me down again.
Okay, it's a
C+.
It's in that range. It's just juggling a lot, man.
Yeah,
but you know what?
All well.
But you know what? I think the good thing about both these movies and just the Time Machine in general is there's a lot of creativity in there.
Yeah, there's no denying that.
There's a good story in there, and I think it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for having me by.
Of course. No, see, I knew we had to do more of these. I've been trying to get to do Time Machine for how long? Like, since we started this. It was like,
a long time.
Got to talk about Time Machine.
Yeah.
But, I actually have another one I'll be putting up with Gimli, a favorite movie or two of his.
And you won't even tell me what that is. I'm intrigued.
Oh, because I want you to listen to it and hear some.
I always do.
Because I'm sure you're curious about these films.
Oh, all right.
I'm sure you are. But look forward to that. I was doing a lot of recordings, so there'll be a lot of videos and podcasts in the future. But please,
and your book.
Oh yeah. For anybody that's still listening, I'm still promoting it. Black Tree, I published on Amazon. You can read it on Kindle or on the Amazon cloud for a couple bucks if you want, or order a paperback. Quite a few people have actually.
I'm getting the paperback. You know me. I like things I can touch.
Believe me, it's like and I actually was like I want to save paper, but a lot of people are getting paperbacks. Yeah. So I'm like it's doing better. I think there's 10 or 15 people for the copies. It's like wow. So I appreciate all the support. And also I'll do an official video, but there is an audiobook in the works through Audible. So
wait, what?
So if you
are you reading it?
I thought about it, but I don't want to be too pompous or anything. It said
all right.
I'm trying to sell
so what you can
it said
rent it out and somebody else reads it.
Well, it's cool actually. Audible has this whole thing set up where they even say you can record it yourself if you want, but they think that books tend to do better with professional voiceover guys. And I'm like, I want to get better at it, but I want to give it to somebody.
Wow, that's cool.
So I've had people auditioning, and I picked a guy. His name is Chris, and he's working. He read the first 2 chapters, and I'm like, sounds good. He's helping me find a couple grammar errors I missed, so there might be an update along the line.
Second pressing.
Second edition, nice and seamless. So might be some inconsistencies there, but it's been really good so far.
Good.
It's very cool. He makes it sound better than it actually is. So
wow.
Now you got to get both.
Because I do like an audiobook.
I'll be honest.
I can't lie.
Let me tell you something.
When I'm in the car or something,
I don't get it for free, so I'm going to buy the audiobook.
Yeah,
I'm going to because it also works with supporting him. It's a royalty thing. So
very good.
We both get royalties for that. So please support him for that, and more announcements. That'll take him a while to do. So that won't be for probably a month or 2 yet.
Right.
But yeah. So my last plug, though, the most important is please check out Dan.
Please. Thank you.
No, Dan reviews it. We do things like this. Dan's big movie. Mm-hmm. We do the Disney stuff. Talk about, I think, Hannibal coming up soon.
Yep, we'll do Hannibal. We did all the Freaks and Geeks episode if you guys are into that.
He does all kinds of TV, movie stuff over there. So
thank you.
Please
I do appreciate
check it out. He's got over 700 subs. Let's get him to 1,000.
Yes, that's my goal for 2021, by the way.
And he gets to 1,000, then he can become a YouTube partner.
Is that right? Is that how it works?
Get monetization. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Get him the big 2 cents a month. Yeah.
That's when the big bucks start rolling in.
When I get 1,000 subscribers in 10 years, that's when the big bucks start rolling in. Check out the America podcast if you haven't already. Not enough people watched it. Come on. Come on. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yep. Bye.
All right, stay magical, everybody.